Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on the Green and Clean YouTube channel. My name is Vittal and today's episode is going to be unusual. It is unusual because I'm going to talk about some of the issues about owning the EVs. You might be thinking all these days, all these episodes, this guy is only talking about praises, so he's very biased about EVs. But that's not the case. I'm also going to talk about some of the issues I faced during this ownership of my EV experience. So let's get started. The number one issue I would like to highlight is the range or the charging anxiety. Right, so range and charging anxiety is real. I covered one episode previously, so if you have not watched it, please watch it. So in that episode, I did say that it is a manageable anxiety, but to be honest, for some of you, it may not be a manageable anxiety. I can tell you pretty much that every single EV owner would have gone through this range or charging anxiety at least once, if not more than once, in his or her lifetime. If not, he or she is lying. So range anxiety is real. You are going to face some range anxiety as you own an EV, right? But it's not like you will face it every day, and it is probably going to be an issue when you face it for the first time or maybe the first few times, and after that you will get immune to this kind of a phenomenon. So you might be more courageous as you do long journeys with this range anxiety, and you have to take it like it's sort of an adventure, and that's how you can manage it. I've covered it exhaustively in the previous episode, so you can check it. But range anxiety could be one of the deal breakers for some of you. So it is real. Even with the car that has nearly 450 kilometers of range, I still faced range anxiety in a couple of times. For example, there was one situation where I had to do an emergency travel. So I had to travel something like 350, 400 kilometers urgently to reach some place. And I was sitting with 15% charge in my car, and there was no way I could stop somewhere, wait for the charging, which would take maybe 1.5 hours, and then start the journey. So I could not take out my EV, and I felt really bad about it. So emergency situations and some cases where you get range anxiety, it is going to be not so pleasing experience for you. But remember, we are doing this to save the environment, to reduce the carbon footprint and improve our air quality. So if you have that mindset and you are able to take some sort of a risk in life, then range anxiety is nothing. So trust me. So that's number one issue. The number two issue is some sort of uncertainty with EVs when you experience breakdowns. I've said multiple times that EVs rarely break down because you have very less number of moving parts. So chances of an EV getting breakdown or broken down is not very high. But when that happens, it is going to be a difficult situation, because if you're stranded on a highway with some issue with your EV, you're not going to get any local mechanic or somebody who can spot this issue and fix it for you. It is, at least at this point of time, it is a niche skill where only certain people will know how to fix those issues. Even when you go to dealership, they will not know. Not all the mechanics at the dealership will know about how to fix the EVs. So it is a niche skill. So you need some specialized people to look into and fix an issue. So if you have a breakdown somewhere, then it's going to be an issue. And since we're talking about breakdown, EVs are also a little bit difficult to, let's say, manage in case you have an accident. If you have like a really fatal accident that could damage the battery. So as you know, most of the EVs, you have the battery in the chassis. It's a part of the car's body. It is rigid. It is tested for stress and various crash tests. But still, if you are meeting with an accident, if and it causes a damage to the battery, then there is a huge risk that you might have to replace that battery. So in case of breakdown, in case of some accidents, EVs are slightly tricky and slightly risky to own than ICE cars. The third issue that I want to talk about is the range drops. This is very similar to what I mentioned in the first point, the range anxiety, but the range drop is that, if you have an EV, uh, there is going to be a lot of range drop when the weather is not, when it's not a perfect weather. If it is too hot, like let's say more than 35 degrees, or too cold, less than 5 degree or less than 0 degree, then EV's range is going to drop significantly. India is a hot country, so I don't think we will have problem with the cold weather, but definitely we will have problems when you have hot weather in hot summer, more than 35 degrees or 40 degrees. So it is going to range will drop anywhere between 20 to 30% in these extreme weather conditions, and the range will also drop when you are going in an elevation, when you are going uphill. So it's going to significantly drop, maybe 30-40% of the range will drop when you go, let's say, a ghat section, when you're climbing up a ghat section. It happened to me for the first time. I didn't know that this would happen, so I was under range anxiety, because by the time I finished climbing the ghat, the battery was almost 15% or something like that. So I had to find a charging spot. So you have to consider the drop in elevation or the increase in elevation when you do these calculations for the trips. So that's why applications like PlugShare and eHub by MG, they have the elevation detail, because it is very important for EV, the elevation that you are coming from or going to. So range drop because of that is an issue. And then the range also drops if you drive the EV too fast. If you do 120 kilometers or more, then the range will drop significantly, maybe 30-40% range drop you can expect if you are a high speed driver. So EVs give best range when you are driving it at 80 to 100 kilometers an hour, at least. I'm talking about the BYD and some of the cars that I know. So you have to drive EVs with a little bit of respect, and then you will get the desired range. Otherwise, the range is going to drop. So super fast drivers who drive 140, 160 kilometers, which I don't think is safe in India, but there are drivers who drive. So for you, EVs may not be the choice. I like EVs because it doesn't allow me to drive fast. So it gives me an incentive or a punishment for driving fast. So I always drive at around 100 kilometers when it is allowed on the highway. So range drop in these three scenarios is an issue. The next issue that I want to talk about is some hidden costs while owning an EV. The first hidden cost is when you set up your home charging infrastructure, right? So I guess most of you will go for home charging for EV because that's the cheapest and the best. When you set up these home charging, most of you will not have a plug point in your parking garage. So you have to draw the wire, you have to call the electrician, draw the wire to your plug point, and you have to use the right gauge of wire. So it's not cheap. So this whole setup could cost, I don't know, it depends on the distance, how long you are drawing the wire. So it could cost 5,000-10,000 rupees to set up the whole wiring for EV. And in some cases, if your load from the power grid is not at least 4 or 5 kilowatt hour, you have to first apply for a increased load, and the power supply company will take some initial deposits for that. So it is going to cost, I don't know, another 10-15 thousands. And because you went for a higher kilowatt hour power, you will have a fixed rate in your electricity bill, which will be higher than before you owned a EV, right? So there is going to be these expenses, like I would say roughly about 30 to 40,000 when you first set up the charging infrastructure, and then every month you are paying maybe 300 or 400 rupees more because of your high slab of the power output that you have requested for. So that has to be accounted for. And the second hidden charge is that when you charge your battery, it is not going to exactly charge what is stated in the battery. Let's say if you have a 50 kilowatt hour battery, it is supposed to take 50 units to fully charge it, but in most cases it will take 55 to 60 units, 55 to 60 kilowatt hour to charge it fully. This is because the batteries have some let's say like a reserve sort of a capacity. At least it's there in this BYD model. Also, there is going to be a heat and a transmission loss that happens while you charge, especially if you charge during daytimes in summers. It is going to take a bit more electricity than you would expect. So you pay about 5 to 10% more for the electricity than you anticipated. It is still way cheaper, don't get me wrong there, but it is not exactly like 100 rupees. It is going to be little more than 100 rupees because of these various issues that I talked about. And another factor one needs to consider about these home chargers is the warranty on the chargers. It's a very hazy picture. Some chargers come with 2-3 years of warranty, but it might most likely so happen that your charger might go bad, the home charger may go bad before your battery or something happens to the car, right? So the cost of the charger is something to be considered. It costs somewhere between 16,000 to way more than 50,000 depending on the type of charger. So if you have a charger which doesn't have a good warranty and it is expensive, then some cost for replacement of the charger needs to be considered over a period of longer run. And another point about these hidden cost is when you are trying to use a public charger, you will select a charger next to an eating place, and sometimes those eating places are on the expensive side. I'm somebody who would eat at joints which are like nominal, not too expensive, not too cheap. So I am that kind of a guy. But sometimes when you stop at a eating joint just because you have to charge, and when you go to the restaurant, the prices are higher. For example, a coffee that costs 25 rupees in normal restaurants in these high-end shops might cost 60-70 rupees, and also the food items. So if they are high-end restaurants, then your food bill is going to be high. So whatever you thought you will save in the fuel cost might go in your food cost. So it's going to be sometimes difficult to manage the rate and the quality of the food when you are stopping at the public chargers. Sometimes you won't get good quality food on those public chargers. Sometimes if you like a particular restaurant on the highway, that restaurant may not have an EV public charger. So it's not the most ideal, but you have to manage with what we have. And I'm pretty sure over the next few years, this situation will improve, and most of the eateries on the highway will have a good charging option. So that's what I think will be the case. Another point about these public chargers is that they have each of these public charging companies have their own apps. So you will end up having a lot of charging apps on your mobile. Maybe every EV owner has at least 10 to 15 different charging apps, and each of these apps will have a wallet, and you have to have some balance in those wallets. So there could be some money stuck in all these various different wallets if you are an EV owner. So it's not an ideal situation. I hope there will be some day when all of these things will be unified and you just have one app and one wallet to charge EVs. So in a nutshell, these are some of the issues that I think as an EV owner you need to be aware of, and just see whether some of these issues actually are a deal breaker for you. But remember one thing, you are opting for an EV because it pollutes less. you are trying to save the environment. I've already proven in the previous episodes that EVs pollute less no matter what scenarios you take into consideration. If you have not watched that episode, please watch it. So you are trying to help the environment while trying to, you know, face these issues and accept these issues and try to work around these issues. So that's in short, I wanted to discuss about some of the issues that you will see in EVs. So with that, we are pretty much coming to the end of the season. I will cover one more episode just to wrap up this season 1. So this episode was only to cover these issues on EVs. Thanks a lot for watching. If you know something more, or if you are an EV owner and you faced some more issues, please let me know in the comments section so that whoever watches this episode is benefited from that. Thanks again and see you again next time.